there are two more units here. This present unit 11 is on how to study for the final exam. And then the next one, the final unit 12, is on the structure of the exam. Okay, so how to study for the final exam. First of all, it will take place on the regularly assigned time, which really depends on which group you're in. If you are in the 10 a.m. group, well, you'll be doing it Monday, April the 27th. And if you're in the 9 a.m. group, you're going to do it Saturday, May the 2nd. Now, why are we following the regularly scheduled times? Well, when the university told us to switch over from classroom classes to online classes, they said to keep the final exam on the regular time and day, and so that's what I'm doing. Now, they may have changed their mind since then. I have no idea, but that's what we're going to do. Now, suppose it's not a good time for you. Well, we can make individual adjustments. For the online propositional logic quiz, which you did a few weeks ago, there were about 5 people who had a problem with having it on the assigned time. One gal was in Korea, and the scheduled time would be in the middle of the evening, middle of the night, when you're sleeping. And she said, well, could we make it at some other time? And I said, sure. And I think another person had to work then, or had another something scheduled, or couldn't borrow a computer for that day or whatever. So I'm fairly flexible, but look at when you're supposed to do it. And if you can't do it on that day, tell me about it and suggest alternatives. Okay, and we can deal with that. Now, what will the structure be of the final exam? Actually, I'm just going to sketch it very briefly here. The last unit talks more nitty-gritty about the structure, but basically, the final exam will be much like our online quiz. The one on propositional logic a few weeks ago. I wasn't sure how that's going to work. Logicola is not really designed to test your understanding. It's designed to teach you. So it doesn't even keep track of how many right and wrong you get. So how do you adapt it to something where you got to give people a grade? Well, I figured out a way to do it, and it seemed to go amazingly well. It seemed to, in a rough way, the people who did showed a lot of understanding, did really well in the quiz, and people who were kind of clueless about the problems didn't do so well. Not too many. Most people did pretty well. In fact, it was pretty easy in terms of the grading. It was people did very well, but that's all right. I was happy with it. So the final exam will be much like the quiz you took a couple of weeks ago. There will be some differences. First of all, you'll have 2 hours. Final exam is typically longer. So instead of 1 hour, you'll have 2 hours. And you'll have 3 essential exercises that you all have to do instead of 2. As kind of a minimal understanding, you should be able to do these in 3 hours, in 2 hours, and maybe more. What are these essential exercises? Well, modal logic translations, type the answer version. The modal proofs, and this is C, the combined valid and invalid, so you have a mixture of these. And then the informal fallacies. So these you're expected to do within the 2 hours, and then as many of these 14 bonus exercises as you can. So I expect that some of you will be able to do all of them. Some of you will be able to do maybe a couple, maybe a smaller number. This is kind of like we had for the online quiz a few weeks ago, except you had 1 hour, and you had 2 essential exercises, and you had 7 bonus exercises. And I was really amazed that about a third of the class did every one of the 2 essential ones and the 7 bonus ones. I was just amazed that you were that good. And this is comparable. You have double the time, but then almost double the number of problems you can do. And my expectation is that some people will struggle to do the 3 essential ones. A few people who don't understand the material very well, most people will do those in some bonus exercises, and I'd be really tickled silly if a whole lot of you did everything. Surprised me again. Much of the final is on new stuff, modal logic and informal fallacies. There's also old stuff, syllogisms, basic propositional logic, and propositional proofs. So you have to study both of them, the new stuff and the old stuff. What are some study tools? Well, first of all, the book, the explanations and problems. The book is written to be pretty easy to learn from. The explanations are pretty simple. There's a lot of boxes and, for key points and examples and all that sort of thing. Plus, it's the 3rd edition. When I went from first to second edition, second to third, I asked myself, what areas do students have trouble understanding? And how can I explain it better? And I tried to do that. So I think it's a pretty clearly written book. Review it. Maybe don't read everything, maybe just skim for the important things. Like when you get to syllogisms, it talks about what well-formed formulas are, woofs. Well, that's really crucial. Spend a couple minute or two kind of reviewing that. And there's also problems, a lot of exercises. If you had trouble with some of them that are going to be on the final, well, do more problems from the book. And you can get the answers either in the back of the book or in the teacher's manual. And the teacher's manual is available. The easiest way to get at it is from Logicola. You go help, supplements, and you can download or view the teacher's manual. And between the back of the book and the teacher's manual, you have the answers to all the problems in the book. So spend some time on the book. There's also flashcards. I gave you some for, what do we have? Syllogistic translations, propositional logic translations, S&I rules. I didn't give you any for modal logic or informal fallacies. There are some, but we didn't meet so that I could give them to you physically. But you can print them out if you want. If you find that helpful, go to Logicola, help, the help menu, supplements, and you can download the flashcard file. It's a regular Word file, and you just have to print the ones you want on 2 sides of a sheet of paper. And the ones you want are basically the modal logic ones and the informal fallacies. Informal fallacies has the name of the fallacy and then a description on the back. Another thing useful is old tests. Um, Now you just have two written tests, basic propositional logic and syllogistic logic, but these are the things probably you need to review the most. So go back on your old tests, and if you got them all right, well, review them, and you might do it again. You might do the sample test, which again is on Logicola. That's good practice. Um, if you got a lot wrong on these, we'll figure out what you got wrong and learn. Logicola especially is a good study tool, especially since the test will be Logicola based. And you want to email me your homework Logicola scores. Now, this is different from the ones on the test where you give your exercise code added onto your name and you're timed and that sort of thing. These are just your regular homework. They're not timed. You use your regular name without any special code, and you have to send them to me before midnight, May the 2nd. And there's only 5 of them. There's 2 modal translations, 3 on modal proofs, and 1 on informal fallacies, which is what will be involved in the test also. So do these beforehand, email them to me as soon as you can. Please, please, please. I will start pestering you toward the end of the second final, which will be on May the 2nd. I will pester you if you haven't sent them to me. You want to do these early and send them to me. Do not wait until after the exam. I mean, you could do that. You could take your exam on May the 2nd and then later in the day do the Logicola homework. This is really stupid. The people sometimes do this throughout the semester. They do their Logicola homework after the quiz. Well, the Logicola homework is probably the most important preparation for the quiz. So do this first, and then send it to me. Also, it gets a little bit more work off of my plate too. So when I do all this calculation for your final exam and grade and that sort of thing, if we have the Logicola all taken care of, it's easier for me, plus I don't have to keep pestering you to do that. So, okay, break up your study. Don't study like, 5 hours in a row. This is not efficient. This is not good for your brain. You're not going to learn. You're just going to get overloaded. Do a little bit each day. Begin early. Do a little bit of Logicola, do a little bit of the book, flashcards, old tests, etc., etc., etc. A little bit each day, and you'll really do learn better that way, and get enough sleep. Sometimes people pull an all-nighter before the final logic, and I see them, and they are pathetic looking. They can hardly stay awake. Now, this one I won't see you, but the thing is, you got to know the stuff and be in good condition. Okay, so uh, an important area to review is syllogisms. There will be 5 exercises on that. We have not been building on it like we have been building on other things, so this is more important to study and review. And these are the bonus exercises that you could do with Logicola. They're fairly simple and easy if you know this stuff. And if you don't, they're impossible. So what do? What are these about? Well, you got the translation, easier and harder, and they're just type the answer. So don't do the multiple choice. Well, you can do that in preparation. If you're really stuck by the type the answer, do the multiple choice ones first. But the ones on Final will be easier type the answer, and easier and harder type the answer. Harder involves those idioms. And then you have arguments. 3 exercises on arguments. The straightforward English ones, where you translate into logic, into syllogism, and then say if it's valid or invalid. Then you have the ones where you derive the conclusion. So you got premises given, supposed to derive the conclusion. And then the ones which are idiomatic, where you have the conclusion could be anywhere, and you have idioms like only and not all and that sort of thing. These 2 are the harder ones. Okay. What is there to review about syllogism? Well, first of all, what is a woof? The woofs are the legitimate statements of the language, and recall that there are, we don't want to do that. You want to do a smaller ink thing. So all A is B. No A is B. Some A is B. Some A is not B. And the ones with small letters. Small a is capital B. Small a is not capital B. Small a is small b. Small a is not small b. So a woof or woof form formula has to be one of those 8 forms. You can use other capital letters. So instead of all A is B, you could say all capital Q is capital R. But you can't use small letters with these. It's not a woof. And similarly, these are the ones that begin with a small letter. You can't begin with a capital. You have to begin with a word and then a capital, or begin with a small letter. So that's important. Distribution. Some of these letters are said to be distributed or not, and that feeds into the STAR test. Which are the distributed ones? The ones immediately after the word all. Okay, so after the word all, the first one is, but not the second is distributed. Or anywhere after no or not. So after no, they're both distributed. After not, not. So here I'm underlining the distributed ones. Okay, that's important to review. The STAR test is a test for validity which works off of that. So how does that work? Well, make sure you know how to do that. Suppose you have a syllogism. All A is B. No, B is C. Therefore, no, C is A. Okay. Which are distributed? Immediately after all. Anywhere after no or not. Okay. Now, with the STAR test, you star the ones you underlined in the premises, that is the distributed ones, and the ones you did not underline in the conclusion, the undistributed ones, the ones you did not underline. So which do, if you underline the distributed ones, then in the premises up here you star the ones you underline. In the conclusion, you star the ones you did not underline. And then you count the stars. To be valid, every capital has to be starred exactly once. Small letters doesn't matter. So capital A is starred once. It's starred here and not here. So it's starred once. Capital B is starred once. Capital C is starred once. And there's exactly one right-hand star. And there you go. It is valid then. Okay. Good, good, good. Now, how does it work with the ones where you're inferring? Well, you have let's say all A is B, no B is C, therefore. So what do you do? What's distributed? All, dumb, dumb. No, let's put an A here. I wanted to give one with a certain example here. So what gets starred? Well, the underlined in the premises, and you don't know the conclusion. So this is one where you're supposed to figure out the conclusion. So what's the so you start the premises. Are rules broken? Yes. The A is starred twice. So you're not going to get a valid conclusion here. So this is just invalid, or in logical you say nil or no conclusion or something like that. Let's do another example. Let's say all A is B, some C is A. Therefore, okay, what's distributed? A. That's the only one. What is starred? Just this. Are any rules broken? No. The A is starred just once. There's no rules broken. What letters will occur in the conclusion? Well, it'll be the ones that just occur once, B and C. And what will the form of the conclusion be? Well, that's a little tricky. That's something you want to study and review. If you have all alls, you get an all. That's not the case here. If you have all a no, you get a no. That's not the case. With a sum, if you have two capitals, you have to have a sum in the conclusion. And then if you have a not in the premises, you need a not in the conclusion also. You don't have that. So the conclusion will be some blank is blank. And then you put them in, you plug them in and see if it works. So some B is C, star undistributed, yeah, it's valid, and there you go. You're looking for valid conclusion, which follows using all the premises. If you don't, if it doesn't come out right, maybe try it the other way, and that sort of thing. So what else? Let's erase some of this stuff here. So, inferring, that's a hard part. And small and capital letters. Well, names, John is a small letter. A cute baby is a capital letter. It could describe many babies. The world's cutest baby which is Will Gensler. my nephew, actually he's grown up now, but when I used this when he was small, it would be a small letter. Small letters stand for specific entities, one specific being. The world's cutest baby would refer to one specific being. A cute baby could describe many babies. So small and capital. Idioms, there's things like only A's are B's, which means what? All. B is A. Only means all, but you got to reverse the order. Okay. Not all A is B means some A is not B. These are kind of tricky. They're just a matter of knowing English, but still it's hard. And these come up especially with the harder translations and with the idiomatic arguments, where you have a lot of these idioms. And you also, with the idiomatic arguments, have to figure out the conclusion. Conclusion words are like therefore, or it must be, or this proves blankety blank, or whatever. So with the idiomatic ones, you have to figure out premises and the conclusion. That's the first thing. What's the premises? What are the conclusion? And then you got to untangle the idioms. And that's a pretty hard one, actually. So study syllogisms a lot because we haven't been building on it as much as other things. And you can get they're fairly easy. You should be able, if you know the stuff, you should be able to whip by these exercises on Logicola pretty fast, actually. Then basic propositional logic, I would study a good bit of time reviewing too. What is there here? Translations, easier translation, type the answer, and harder type the answer. So translations, and then arguments, English and idiomatic. English is very straightforward. If you go outside, then you'll be wet, but you're not wet, therefore you didn't go outside or something, whatever. And then the S&I rules. This is combined S&I harder. And this is important for doing proofs too. If you have any doubt about S&I rules, it's going to show up in the proofs. So what is there to study? Woofs. Because when you translate from English to a woof, it's got to be a woof. And there's some simple ones about translation, like not both. What am I doing? Not both A and B would be squiggle, bracket, A and B versus both not A and B would be both as a bracket, squiggle, A and B. Okay, so what is a woof? And some simple rules about bracketing. Truth tables and equivalences. For example, that true implies false is false, and false implies false is true. Okay, there won't be any questions on that as such, but the thing is, it's so important for everything else, especially for the truth assignment tests. How does that work? Well, and that will be like the English and the idiomatic arguments there. Very important. So if you have, suppose you have if A and B, then C, you have B, you have not C, therefore not A. So how do you figure this out in the truth assignment test? Suppose you have true premises and a false conclusion. Would that be possible? That's the first thing you do. Make premises true and conclusion false. And then you figure out what the letters would be. B is true, so you write a little true there. Not C is true, so C is false. Not A is false, so A is true. True and true is true. True implies false. Got to cross it out. You can't have true premises, false conclusion. Therefore, it's valid. So the truth assignment test. There's also idioms. A unless B is just A or B. A only if B is only if B. You write a horseshoe for the only if, it's if A then B. Or you could write if not B, then not A. And study the idioms. That's important for the idiomatic arguments, and it's also important for the harder translations. Again, it's just a matter of knowing English, but that's kind of tricky anyway. And then the I moved it. And then conclusions. With the idiomatic arguments, you have to figure out what's the conclusion first. And it's usually like a word like therefore or it must be or something like that. Indicates conclusion, and words like for these reasons would be premises. And this is a hard assignment. And then finally, the S&I rules, which are important to review, and because of the proofs too. So you have, let's say they're not both true. A is true, therefore B is not true. So make sure you know those. Okay. Propositional proofs, there will be just one bonus one. You did a lot of those last time. And this is one you didn't have last time. It mixes up everything. Single assumption, multiple assumption, valid, invalid. So you don't know what you're gonna get. If you're weak on multiple assumption arguments, I would review that a bit. That also comes up with modal arguments where you got to make a multiple assumption sometimes. I don't want to review that because we had that kind of recently. And then modal logic, I don't want to review because you didn't have time to forget it. Maybe you didn't learn it, but you didn't really have time to forget it. And there will be two essential ones. The translation. Do just the basic ones. The quantified ones are for another class and much more advanced stuff. So basic translation, type the answer. And then a bonus, you can also do multiple choice, which is easier. And then for the proofs, the essential one is C, which is combined valid or invalid. And you can also do for bonus ones, actually easier ones, valid and invalid. And then for informal fallacies, it's just one set. Make sure you know each fallacy, what it is, and make sure you can maybe give an example for each one and go to the list of them and try to give an example of each one in your mind so you know what the categories are. Like appeal to ignorance isn't just where you're talking out of ignorance. It's where you say, this hasn't been proven, therefore it's probably true, something like that. So these I think you should review less, but it's a matter of, especially these two, which is the new stuff, which is more new stuff than a lot of new stuff. So make sure you know these well. Send me your homework, Logicola scores. Again, do that early in the process. It's going to help you. The quiz will be like it. And send me your scores and study hard. This is a demanding test, really, especially the people who did all of the bonus exercises. Wow. But that's important. You're going to have difficult tests in your life. You're going to have the MCAT or the LSAT or some professional test and so forth. Determines what professional school, what med school, what law school, what business school, whatever you're going to get into. And so having a test which pushes you like this is, I think, a good thing. So send me your homework scores and don't wait until the last minute. Study hard, and again, break it up. Await my "Are you ready?" email, which I will send you the day of the quiz, of the final. And do well and keep away from viruses. Please stay healthy. Okay, the world needs you. The world needs smart people because the world is facing danger. You think that the virus is a dangerous thing? Well, this is nothing like global warming, where we need people who are very bright. in business and in medicine and in biology and in physics and in engineering and logic. People who can think clearly about things. So build your mind. Okay, so that's about preparation. There's only one more unit left, and that will be some of the nitty-gritty on the final exam, which is our last unit, which is the next one.